sprung his way around and went into someone's home and climbed onto the roof. He could have commanded that all the people move out of his way just so that he can see. After all, he did have the authority of the Romans behind his title. He could have had his secretary set up an appointment with Jesus to stop by his office so that he could see who this man was. But don't you find it strange that a man with Zacchaeus' stature climbed a sycamore tree? Now imagine him. It didn't say what he had on, but here's the head of the IRS with his fancy three-piece suit on out in the middle of Jericho, and he's climbing up in a tree. He's gonna get his threads nice and dirty. He might get a tear, but he still climbed the sycamore tree. So let's examine the characteristics of a sycamore tree. So in my study, I found out that sycamore trees actually have a smooth trunk, which suggests to me that it's going to be difficult to climb. There's nothing to really grasp onto and dig your fingers into like an oak tree or a pine tree or a redwood tree or one of those other trees that you can just grab onto it and latch onto it and begin to climb yourself up. No, it has a smooth trunk. And it's really wide, so I'm sure he had a difficult time getting up there. So point number one, sometimes you find yourself in a position where you have to give the Lord a sign. Zacchaeus had to give the Lord a sign to show the Lord that he was ready to find out who he was for himself. Zacchaeus didn't even have to call out the name of Jesus. All he did was climb. And Jesus took note of his climb and who he was and cried out to him and invited himself to Zacchaeus' home. Now, some of us, we may have to go out on a limb just like Zacchaeus. I found myself working on Capitol Hill, being passed up for promotion after promotion, being promised one thing but only given more work and the same amount of pay. So I had to get to the point where I said, well, what is it I'm going to do? Am I going to stay here and continue to be subjected to this, or am I going to go out on a limb? And I found myself asking the question, is it foolish or is it stepping out on faith for me to just quit my job without having somewhere else to go? So I finally got to the point where I said, Lord, I'm trusting in you. You are going to be my branch. You are going to be my sycamore tree. I know that you are rooted and grounded and I'm not going to fall. So I wrote my letter of resignation. I turned it in, and I can still go back and get a good reference because I didn't burn that bridge, but I knew that something had to change. That gave the Lord an opportunity to give me 1 month's vacation to sit at home at my mother's house, rest and relax before I started out on the campaign trail, traveling the country nonstop, in airports every week, in another state every week, in rental car agencies, standing in lines, out there working again because God didn't leave me nor forsake me. But if I had found myself stuck in a place where I didn't want to go out on